Pak Hilmar, the Pekan Kebudayaan Nasional, or we should say the Indonesian National Cultural Fair. Now, could you describe what is it about? Is it merely about preserving the cultural identity of the nation, or is it also about protecting the national interest? Perhaps you could paint a little picture of what is the purpose for this event.
Well, to make a long story short, when I took office in 2016, there was a great concern about the absence of a forum or a platform at the national level for cultural activities. So in sports, you have the Pekan Olahraga Nasional, or the National Sports Week. So the question then was, why don't we have something akin to that for culture? So then we just started to organize the first event in 2019, and more than 250,000 people attended, mostly young people. So while we know there is a perception, or I should say a misperception, that the young people are not interested in culture. So then we decided to make it a regular, and this year is the third year of the event, and it's still growing despite the limitations due to the pandemic. And in our 3 years of organizing this, I mean, the lessons that we learned is that, well, there is great interest in culture, and it is much more than simply like showing your cultural identity, but the urgent need to really express yourself with a mixture of tradition and contemporary expressions. So we see it really as based in our national interest to have such an event.
Hilmar, as you mentioned before, it's interesting that the young generations, there are assumptions that the young are not interested in preserving the culture. So there is a generation gap problems here. Mm-hmm. So how does this festival can attract those demography to, you know, finally realize and joining or contribute in preserving the culture, Pak Hilmar?
Right. Well, the key word here is relevance. No? How cultural tradition can be relevant for young people. Just like take food, for example. Today, there is a growing concern, like I think everywhere, no? About a healthy diet. Less oil, less sugar, less this and that. No? And people begin to look for a variety of food sources. And if you look at our tradition, we have so much to offer when it comes to a healthy diet. Our ancestors from time immemorial have developed knowledge about their environment, about animals, plants, and so on. And I think we have this rich tradition of food processing in different cultures that you will see, like how societies use same plants for different purposes. So this is what we tried to offer at the Pekan Kebudayaan Nasional, and it really gathered interest from people because, I mean, these are knowledges that have been neglected, forgotten, ignored, and Pekan Kebudayaan Nasional is the platform to bring it back, you know, for our examination, you know, to really evaluate whether it would be useful for us in the future or not.
That's a very interesting point. Pak Hilmar, today we know that technology is very powerful in that it could disrupt many things quickly. And in fact, it could create and recreate social life and culture altogether. Now, how do you plan in this event to exploit this technology to amplify our national culture? I think that's very relevant.
Yep.
Well, yeah, it's a very important question indeed. If you look at the cultural value chain, along the line, you are dealing with disruptions, right? Creation, production, distribution, exhibition of cultural expression, everything has been changed due to the use of digital technology today. Yeah, well, be it tangible cultural heritage like museums, historical buildings, painting collection, and so on, or intangible cultural heritage like songs, performing arts, and so on. So what we do is that we've been trying we've been working together with artists, filmmakers, and many of them are digital natives to exploit this technology. And one of the results is our own cultural channel, Indonesiana.tv. The other, of course, is our National Cultural Fair, which is like 100% produced and distributed using digital technology. Of course, there's still a lot to do to enhance or amplify our cultural expressions using this technology. And one of the most recent, for example, is the use of blockchain technology, the use of non-fungible tokens, NFTs for museum and gallery collections, and so on. So, and I think the best strategy to develop this is to open the process, yeah, to involve communities, people working in that field, together with scientists, cultural practitioners, and so on. We have an annual meeting, a camp for young people, mostly digital natives, to develop digital projects for cultural preservation and so on. So this is now currently quite recent. The last 3 years, we've been actively bringing young people together for that purpose. And I think we are beginning to see the results of that.
Okay. Now we see a lot of YouTube video that, a performance combine the traditional music with the modern musician plays together. It's very interesting. But
definitely,
you mentioned once again about the young people. It's interesting that a few months ago we saw that our neighboring countries claimed a cultural heritage as their culture, and then it's become a social media frenzy. It's the wayang kulit stuff, and then it's being attached to shoes.
Before that, it was a batik stuff.
Before that was a batik. Do you think this kind of event will avoid for that things to happen in the future, or actually our young generation care about the cultural preservation only on social media level?
Right, it's a recurring theme. I mean, it's all, every year I think we are dealing with issues like this, especially with Malaysia. I have to bring ASEAN into the picture, no? Because last year, for example, we co-nominated Pantun, yeah, a literary form for the inclusion into the list, the UNESCO list, no, for intangible cultural heritage. And it was, I think, the first joint nomination that we made with Malaysia. And during the process, we also discussed like different aspects of where we can actually work together. And I have to inform you that Indonesia actually took the lead in the discussion and formulation of this ASEAN cultural identity. Our colleagues in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, we've been involved in many discussions about that, and begin to see that we have so much in common. Yeah. So I think claiming is probably not the right word, since you have a lot of people from Sumatra and Java living in Malaysia today. So they have, of course, also the right to develop their culture in even if it's in a different country like Malaysia. So the issue is not really about claiming that heritage, but what you are going to do with that. No? If you then want to have an exclusive claim, then we have a problem. Yeah. But if you are promoting that culture and think of it as a shared heritage, I think that's fine. I mean, why not? I mean, we are playing Western music here, and we don't think, or the Westerners don't think that this is something that belongs to them exclusively, that other people cannot use. No? And I think the idea of having your cultural heritage contributing to the global population is what we really need to do. No? And I think the younger people are interested in the subject, maybe because of that social media frenzy, right? But I think there's something deeper to that as well, based on the fact that there are many communities of young people who are now very active in promoting intangible cultural heritage. They're involved in the nomination process of cultural heritage to UNESCO and so on. So I think it is not simply about claiming the right to be an exclusive owner of a certain heritage, because we know in the world now we share a lot of our history and our culture with other communities as well.
I think it makes perfect sense because, you know, our language root is the same as the Malay language. So it's only natural that the products of the culture, like artwork, may also be similar.
Exactly.
I agree with that point. Now, just one last question, Pak Hilmar, about the event, this Pekan Kebudayaan Nasional. Is this something that the public can also participate in? And if yes, how can the public enjoy this cultural week festival as well?
Well, as I said, it's everything is online. So you have like 2 channels. I mean, you can access it through Indonesiana.tv. There it's sequential, like all of these events are laid out on a certain schedule. But you can also access the archive, which is on paykey.id.
Okay, how many?
So that's the 2 channels that we have that we use to distribute the program.
Okay, how many participants will join the event, Pak Hilmar?
Well, I haven't counted, but I think, I mean, if you look at the people who access that, there are like thousands a day, so that's quite a lot. Of course, we expect more if you look at the archives, but yeah, I have to get the numbers first to tell you the detailed